How's it going, YouTube? Tyler the Semi Mechanic here, guys. What we got going today, as you can see to my left, is a brake chamber. We are going to be putting that on a semi trailer that I did a annual inspection on a couple days ago. A little bit of backstory about this brake chamber. So the current one that is installed, the threads stripped off of the rod where the clevis screws on, and the rod is too short as it is. So there was no room for me to be able to cut the rod and thread on the clevis. So a couple days ago, trailer was loaded, driver was waiting. So I had to improvise. So I ended up welding the clevis to the rod to get it able to go down the road to complete the delivery. And now here we are 2 days later. I'm about to do the right thing and replace the brake chamber. So let's get started here.
Here's the existing chamber. You can see how I welded the jam nut here, and then inside I also welded the actual rod to the clevis. I had to use a hammer and hammer the clevis on to where the threads were gone, and then I welded it to get it going down the road, and it worked out. But now we got to change it. A little bit of safety on brake chambers. They are very dangerous. There's giant springs inside that you don't want to mess with. You don't want to separate these chambers. The days of doing that are long over. They will literally blow apart and they'll kill you. I apologize, guys. My original audio was drowned out with background noise. So what we got going on here, currently the trailer brakes are set. To get this slack adjuster free from the clevis, I'm going to apply air to the emergency air system, which is going to release the brakes and take pressure off the slack adjuster. Then I'm going to back off the brakes from the drum, and then after that I am going to pull the slack adjuster free from the clevis. I'm going to back off the slack adjuster here to 7/16. Just going to loosen it, and as I'm loosening it, this brake shoe on this side over by the drum is moving up. So as I crank it, you can see how the space is increasing from the drum. Next, I'm going to take out the cotter pin here on the side that's holding everything. Okay, cotter pin's out. Now this clevis pin, sometimes you got to give it a little persuasion, especially since I beat the hell out of it getting it in there a couple days ago. We're going to just tap it. Use a little punch to push it out. So like I said earlier, the reason why I charged the air system to release the brakes is to give this rod flexibility. Because if it's locked, you can't adjust the brakes, you can't do anything if the brakes are locked down. So you have to give it the ability to flex to make your life easier. So now that we got that out of the way, now we're going to get out. We're going to take the air away from the system to set the brakes. So the next step is, guys, we have to take off these hoses. Very important you don't mix these up, because one of these hoses is for your service brake, which is when you press the brake pedal up in the tractor. That's what actually applies the brakes. The other one is for your parking brakes, hence the one we just used. So if you mix those up, you're gonna have a bad day. So make sure you mark them. I always mark one just in case, so I don't mix them up. I take a tire marker and I just mark the fittings, which one goes where. Mark one, and the other one I don't mark. That way you don't mix anything up. Just an 11/16 wrench, I believe. Yep. Just gonna unscrew them. They're swivel fittings, so hold the top fitting with your finger. Okay, we got our air lines free. Try to keep them out of the way as best you can. Okay, guys, next step is to remove the brake chamber. It's real easy. It's just held on by two nuts. Just take them off. They're usually a 24 millimeter. right, guys, so now comes the part where everybody wants to argue, and that is how to cut your new rod. So as you can see, I got a whole new clevis because obviously the other one I had to weld to what was left of the rod. This is how I do it. What a lot of guys do is they will just match the new rod to the old rod. I think that works fine in most situations. Where do I measure to? So here's how I do it. So I go from the top of the orange to right here where the clevis starts. You can see on this one, I obviously filled it full of weld. But whoever had done this before, the rod only went to about right there. So that's why the threads tore off the rod, because there wasn't enough threads. So a good rule of thumb, it's very similar to like when you get your hair cut. It's better to cut off less and have to recut and cut more, because if you cut it too short to begin with, you're screwed and you got to get a whole new chamber. So definitely, if you're worried, definitely cut it longer. So for measurements, here's what I got. So what I did before I started the video, because I knew that this rod was messed up, was I took the measurement off of the rod on the right side chamber that's on the same axle. And that measurement was different than this measurement by about 1/4 of an inch. So this measurement from the top of the orange, as close as I can get, to the top of the clevis, we are looking at about, let me turn this, 8 1/4 inches. The other one is sitting at about 8 1/2, just under 8 1/2 inches. So I'm going to cut my new rod to 8 1/2 inches, and then that gives me leeway in case if it doesn't line up after I get it all set up, I can make a necessary cut to get it correct. So let's go ahead and get this measured and cut. Alright guys, so I got this in the vise. So before I cut this, what I want to do, you want to make sure you screw down this jam nut. You don't want to have to try to fight it over the threads that you cut, because they are going to get messed up. Sometimes you have to clean them up. So you want to send your jam nut down past where you're going to cut. Double check my measurement. So I had to stop there. Why I stopped mid-cut was because my sparks were getting thrown at me, which most of the time doesn't matter, but when you burn a hole through your glove, it gets a little spicy. And I'm going to throw the clevis on. Okay, the clevis thread's on good. And we're going to get it to where I want it. Don't forget to mark your yellow, or whatever you marked it with. Make sure you mark the same hole. As you can see, I marked the same hole. Now let's throw it on. Grab my impact, run these down. They're a pretty good size thread, so you don't really got to worry about breaking them, but don't kill them. And don't like just run one down, run them both. Okay, then we're going to come up here and install our air hoses. So this one goes up front because it's not marked, and this one goes to the rear. Usually stuff for the most part is pretty dummy proof. I mean, you can see how it's tied to that other line. So in theory, it could only go to this hole anyways, but still, you'd be surprised. Okay, usually the lines are dummy proof, but sometimes they're not. So prepare for them to not be dummy proof so you don't make a mistake that's completely avoidable. Whenever I do an airline, so this is like Loctite or thread tape, whatever, it's built in. But if I ever break the seal, put new thread liquid Teflon on, because you know, I just don't want the chance for a leak when it's completely avoidable. I'd rather spend the time now instead of having to come back. All right, take this little line clamp here. We're gonna put it on the lines to help them hold each other out the way. Man, these things are a pain in the ass sometimes. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to scoot up front and go charge the brakes. So these are those moments when, like I said, hey, make sure you have extra, because, well, after remeasuring, after I got everything all together, I realized that I cut it about a 1/4 inch too long. So I'm going to cut off about a 1/4 inch. Cotter pin. Now we're going to adjust this. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten these brakes down. I'm going to adjust them. See, as I tighten, the brakes are going into the drum. Okay. They're tight. Now I'm going to back them off half a turn, about. I messed it up because I hit the frame, so we're going to restart. Back it off about a half a turn. Okay. Adjust the other side. Ow, hit myself in the face with the ratchet. Okay. Looks pretty good to the eyeball. Make sure you tighten your jam nut, guys. Super important. I can't tell you how many of these work themselves off, and literally stuff falls apart. So make sure your jam nuts are always tight. They're there for a reason, to jam. Okay. All right, now we'll measure stroke. Hey guys, now the last step is we want to measure our brake stroke. The limit for these 30-30 chambers is a maximum of 2.5 inches of brake stroke. So you don't want to be at that limit. You want to be well under it. To measure this, usually I have a tape measure, but I took it out of my service truck and forgot to put it in. And I'm going to try to use it here in inches, but looks like we might be doing communist units. So basically, how you want to measure it is you want to measure from the ow, hit myself in the fucking eye. So how you want to measure it is you want to measure from the back of the can to a known point that's equal. So you can do it to the U shackle, the bottom of the clevis, whatever you want to call it. You can do it to the pin. You can kind of pick wherever you want and just make sure it's the same for all your measurements. So I usually do to the pin. So I'm actually going to use this one because of how it's going to go in. So it's 8 inches in there. Now we got to do math, so we're sitting at exactly 7 inches on the left. And right now the brakes are currently released. You have to do it with it released and with it parked. So I do it the old-fashioned way with pen and paper. Now we're going to measure the right side. And this one is sitting at exactly 7 inches as well. So that's good. We're already equal off the start. Go and set the brakes to park. Alright. Measure this. We're at 7 5/8 inch. And on this side we are at 7.5. So what this means is our brake stroke on the right side is at 1/2 inch, which is well within limits of up to 2.5 inches at the max. So we are very good on that side. And then on the left side, the chamber that I just put on, of 5/8 of an inch of brake stroke. So a little bit more than the right side. Your brake strokes are well within limits, and if you wanted to get that perfect, you probably could. If you sat here and adjusted and readjusted, you could probably get it perfect. But as long as it's within limits and as long as it's as close as possible, that's good enough. So we are done with this job.
All right, guys, that's going to sum this video up. I appreciate you guys watching. Just for good measure, I measured the rear axle brakes, and their stroke length was about 3/4 of an inch each. So they were both good, and the adjusters are working properly. So no adjustments needed. Now this trailer's back on the road. So anyways, guys, that's going to sum it up. If you guys enjoyed this video, please shoot me a like and a subscribe. If you have any comments or questions, please don't hesitate to throw them in the comments section, and stay tuned for more content. Thanks, guys.